Yeah, my name is Tony Knopp, and I'm an emeritus professor of history at the University of Texas at Brownsville.
And my name is Manuel Medrano, and I'm a current history professor at the University of Texas at Brownsville.
And we've written a book about Charro Days.
It includes the history and the evolution of a tradition that is long-standing with the community of Brownsville. We used, again, the resources of the community, people that had been involved in Charro Days, that had photographs, that had all sorts of documentation for it. We also used students, and they brought their photographs.
For me, the most exciting thing was to discover a resource out of the Library of Congress that had a whole lot of photographs taken back in 1942 by a professional photographer who had been working for a government agency. He was going out around the country and just happened to be in Brownsville at the time of Charro Days in 1942. Shot all kinds of photographs that really proved very essential to our work. And to come across those, and this was only 4 years into Charro Days, it enabled us to document the very early period of Charro Days. To me, it was the effort to try to bring the community together, to have a community activity, both to kind of lighten things up during the Depression, because this was during the latter years of the Depression, and to try to bring in some tourism to Brownsville to kind of perk up the economy a bit. And how everybody seemed to get into it. I mean, it was a major project, not just by the city government or the Chamber of Commerce, but that they got a whole lot of people involved during the early years, particularly during the World War II period and even up into the 50s, in the pre-television era, I guess you'd say. This was really a major event that was broadcast around the world. The parades were on television, and the big bands of the era came down here and performed here in Brownsville. So this had certainly a national scope to it.
And the idea of living along the border and having this confluence of cultures that were once here and once in Mexico and now were celebrated is a very, I think, important aspect of the celebration, because what it does, it retains a history. The kids that dance are taught a little bit about the dances, and so you see generations, the population changes, the demographic changes, but in essence, the institution remains the same, and the celebration remains the same. And we celebrate ourselves and our heritage, you know, and our traditions. And it's been able to endure and to continue despite recessions, despite depressions, despite wars, and despite sometimes political instabilities along the border. And so what we have is a celebration, a tradition that resonates what this area is. It's an area that not only has a history, but has a record of enduring.
Giving that perspective to something that people are familiar with. Yes, we know about Charro Days and we know about the parades and so on. That's what the public sees. But how did it get to be that way? How did people create it, and how did they develop it, and how did it get to the point that it's at now? I think that's a fascinating story, and I think it lends something to the people today to know about that past.
Yes, the history is important, but the idea of the community enduring and continuing despite all sorts of changes, that's important.
We want the students to identify more with the past. That's our effort, to understand what has come out of the past, and that's our job.
We have a lot of stories about Charro Days, we have a lot of other things about Charro Days, but to have, again, a family pick up the book and say, God, I remember this Charro Days. Yeah. Great, because it not only teaches history, it teaches family.